Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, I'm Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening to the Slippery Slope. So I'm going to do this episode, and I think I'm going to title it a foreshadowing of our loss of freedom. I think the Australian government, and along with our media, are telling us that we are about to lose the ability for a freedom of speech. Now, I know we don't have it in our constitution, but we have the ability to speak freely to a certain extent at the moment. I believe we're about to really see a loss of that freedom, that ability to speak freely and express ourselves. And I also believe that we're about to see a loss of privacy, an extreme loss of privacy when it comes to sharing information and when it comes to communicating on other platforms that might be that might use technology that the government or that law enforcement agencies are unable to view that information or those conversations. So I'm going to show, first up, I'm going to show this interview that Meredith Whittaker from Signal did. I'm just going to show part of it that she did on the ABC. Very interesting what she has to say. I agree thoroughly with what she's saying. And I think, like I said, this is a foreshadowing. This is what's about to come. They're telling us this is what's about to come. The Australian government is on the attack, and it's about to take away our ability to speak freely and our ability to communicate through encrypted platforms if we want to keep our privacy, if we want to keep our conversations private for whatever reason you might have.
Business model.
But can we go to the question of control or interventions in private communications like the encrypted communications on Signal? Governments in a number of countries have moved to try to get access for law enforcement purposes to encrypted communications. Shouldn't they be able to do that?
Absolutely not. Either encryption works for everyone, including governments, including militaries, including human rights workers, journalists, everyone for whom digital security and meaningful communications privacy equals life or death, equals the confidentiality of sensitive negotiations, equals the ability to do their job without oppressive surveillance. Or encryption is broken for everyone, and backdoors and vulnerabilities are left open for hostile nation states, for hackers, and for anyone else who would want to undermine our core infrastructure. So this is not a topic on which we can negotiate. This is a topic where we're talking about the fundamental laws of mathematics.
But the result of that is that you might have terrorists.
So I agree thoroughly with what Meredith Whittaker said. It's either available for everyone equally. Okay. The problem is, and we're about to see this, this is what the journalist is about to say, come up with the excuses. And this is what the argument that we constantly hear from people like E-Safety Commissioner here in Australia and from other operatives in the Australian government, from really concerningly from the ASIO, the head of ASIO. The excuses that they use, they shape the narrative, and how can you argue against it? Because we're protecting the children, is what they tell us. We're coming after the pedophiles, but in my opinion, they use this argument, and then they take away the freedoms from everyone. But they constantly focus on, well, it's just about protecting children. It's just about the pedophiles. It's just about these people that we want to stop. But, while we're here, we're also going to do all these other things as well. Anyway, listen to sorry for interrupting.
Communicating on your platforms. Researchers at the University of New South Wales say that pedophiles in Australia who are actively offending are 5 times more likely to use Signal than other men. How concerned are you that your platform might be being used to carry abusive material or dangerous material?
The methodology of that survey is highly flawed, and I think we need to back up and recognize that we are in an age of unprecedented mass surveillance. There is more data available to law enforcement, available to governments, than has ever been available in human history. And there is no evidence that the ability to communicate privately is a causal factor in the serious crime of child sexual abuse or terrorism. That there are many, many, many avenues open to law enforcement. And I think what we are seeing, sadly, is the continued rehashing of a desire that has existed for many, many decades for law enforcement to have access to every piece of information, all communications that happen on digital platforms. And we have seen this attack on encryption crop up every few years under a different pretext, whether it be terrorism or saving children or drug dealers or what have you. It is always argued that since the bad people can use encryption, we should kill it for everyone else. And
Yeah, and this, she's exactly right in what she's saying. It's always the same arguments. In my mind, it's always it's lazy law enforcement. Okay, well, the bad guys can use it, so then we, like she said, we should shut it down for everyone.
that is an incredibly dangerous impulse at a time of rising political authoritarianism, when we can look back in history and see how disastrous the abuse of mass surveillance has been when in the hands of authoritarian regimes.
So what's your message then to our regulators and our politicians who would like to be able to get some controls, not just on Signal, but on all sorts of platforms in that encrypted space?
I encourage politicians to have actual political bravery, to realize that there are deep pathologies with the toxic business models that rely on monopoly surveillance, and that to attack those business models, you need to reduce the invasion of privacy that is at the heart of that industry, instead of extending surveillance and trying to get a piece of what Silicon Valley has for government.
Okay, so yeah, there she is sharing about the issues that we currently have and showing how government constantly trying to overstep its boundaries. And it's always the same messaging. Hey, you can trust us. We are the government. We can be trusted, and we need to have access for these things. All the bad guys, they can't be trusted. Obviously, everyone wants to. It's not even all the bad guys. It's, hey, no one else can be trusted, but for somehow we can be trusted. We can be trusted to do the right thing. This is what the government say, and the Australian government is, like I said, is telegraphing its intent at the moment. So we're going to go through a couple of different articles that have come up recently. The first one I'm going to talk about, and a couple of them involve X or Elon Musk specifically. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but let's check it out. So first one, you've probably all seen this. This happened, just spoken about the other week. So British MPs, it's from Politico, British MPs want to haul Elon Musk before Parliament over the riots that happened in the UK. So it's a big issue when governments, when MPs in another country decide that, well, they should have the ability to haul a citizen of another nation for their parliament. Okay, so just a little bit. So London, Elon Musk could be summoned for a grilling by British MPs over X's role in race riots that have rocked the UK over the last week, as well as his own incendiary comments about the violence. Labour's MP Chi Onwurah and Dawn Butler, who were competing to chair Parliament's Science, Innovation and Technology Committee, both told Politico they'd press the billionaire ex-owner and other technology executives to answer questions about the role of social media platforms amid mounting unrest in the UK. Musk has spent days beefing with British politicians over the riots, and is locked in a war of words with Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the UK's handling of them. Musk on Sunday wrote, "Civil war is inevitable in the UK," and claimed that the response by the UK police has been one-sided. Now, whatever you think of Musk, the issue is, I believe, is the UK has dropped the ball, and they don't want to show everyone, okay, well, we've really screwed up in what we've done. The people themselves are over the way you've handled immigration and what you've allowed into that nation. The people are protesting. Whether you agree with what Musk and what other commentators have said on X, it's should you really be threatening someone to basically drag them over for what they've said on another platform? But also to do with X, this headline here: Brazil begins blocking Elon Musk's social media platform X. Brazil has just begun blocking X after a Brazilian Supreme Court justice ordered the immediate suspension of the social media platform in the country. The ban came after the expiry of a court-imposed deadline for the company to identify a legal representative in Brazil. The move is the latest chapter in an ongoing feud between Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandra de Moraes and Elon Musk, which also included the freezing of the satellite internet provider Starlink's financial accounts in Brazil. Justice Moraes' ruling entails a full and immediate suspension of X in Brazil until the company complied with all related court orders, including the payment of fines amounting to 18.5 million reais, and how you pronounce that, which is $4.8 million, and the nomination of a legal representative in Brazil. Mr. Musk branded Justice Moraes an evil dictator cosplaying as a judge and likened his suspension order to illegal political censorship. Earlier this year, Justice Moraes ordered X to block certain accounts implicated in probes of so-called digital militias accused of spreading distorted news and hate. Musk, denouncing the orders as censorship, responded by closing the platform's offices in Brazil. The platform's services, however, remained available. So, next article, we've probably all heard about this as well. Telegram founder's arrest is radical. If it's a crime to build privacy tools, there will be no privacy. Pavel Durov's arrest suggests that the law enforcement dragnet is being widened from private financial transactions to private speech. The arrest of the Telegram CEO, Pavel Durov, in France this week, this happened a couple of weeks ago, is extremely significant and confirms that we are deep into the second crypto war, where governments are systemically seeking to prosecute developers of digital encryption tools because encryption frustrates state surveillance and control. While the first crypto war in the 1990s was led by the United States, this one is led jointly by the European Union, now its own regulatory superpower. Durov is a former Russian, now French citizen, was arrested in Paris on Saturday and has now been indicted. You can read the French accusations here. They include complicity in drug possession and sale, fraud, child pornography, and money laundering. These are extremely serious crimes. Now, you just read this generally and think, wow, he did all this, but this isn't the facts. This isn't what he's actually done. So he goes on, but note that the charge is complicity, not participation. The meaning of the word complicity seems to be revealed by the last three charges. Telegram has been providing users a cryptology tool unauthorized by French regulators. In other words, the French claim is that Durov developed a tool, a chat program that allowed users to turn on some privacy features used by millions of people, and some small fraction of those millions use the tool for evil purposes. Durov is therefore complicit in that evil. He is being held accountable for the sins of other people. That's what's happening. So, yeah, Durov is therefore complicit in that evil, not just morally, but legally. This is an incredibly radical position. It is a charge we could lay at almost every piece of digital infrastructure that has been developed over the past half century, from Cloudflare to Microsoft Word to TCP. But heck, no one would ever go and arrest Bill Gates No, I wonder why no one would ever come along and arrest Bill Gates. Golly gee, I wonder why. So I've brought up these couple of articles because I think, like I said, they are just showing where we're about to go. So different governments are starting to attack these companies, attacking Elon Musk and X over, his ability at the moment. Well, he himself uses the platform to speak freely and say whatever is on his mind. Others are reporting the news, reporting things, being able to convey information to the rest of the world. So, therefore, Brazil attacking X, the UK are getting its back up and coming at X, coming at Elon Musk because I think at the heart of it is because they know. Well, anyone can see that the UK, the government stuffed up the way it's handled immigration, and they don't want to be held accountable for what they've done wrong. Thus, they are attacking X and Musk, and it's very dangerous. I think if you can have governments that are wanting to drag people before their parliaments when they're not even in the country. And then what's happened with the head of Telegram, how he's been held accountable. They've created this tool, encryption. Then the government is holding him personally accountable for what other people have used that tool for. I mean, really? All this relates back to, let's get back what's happening in Australia. We've seen attacks from the E-Safety Commission, that lovely lady who heads that, Julie Inman Grant. And I won't say anything more about it because obviously I'll just get shut down. So obviously, this is all where we're going. All around the world, different governments are starting to attack platforms, and the big players, obviously, Musk, X, Telegram. As you can see with that other interview, they're talking about Signal and the encryption associated with that. Let's go back. This article here, I read this article. This comes from the ABC. This is an interview with Mike Burgess. Mike Burgess, ASIO Director General. This article here, wow, you listen, you read what he says, and it is scary. This is where we're going in Australia. Like I said, you look at everything else happening all around the world, attacking free speech, attacking the ability to communicate privately. This is where we're heading. They're about to take it off us. And they're putting everything, shaping everything under this narrative that, well, it's for the protection of the children. It's to stop the bad guys. You will have to make sacrifices for your privacy, for your ability to speak freely. You will have to make sacrifices because we have to do this. We have no other choice. This is the only way we can defend the children. This is the only way we can fight back against criminals. So, ASIO Director General Mike Burgess issues warning to big tech companies. They may soon be forced to unlock encrypted chats. That's great. There he is there. What's he look like? I wouldn't trust him, eh? In short, ASIO may start forcing technology companies to provide access to encrypted chats. Some companies have raised concerns, and they're talking about what the Signal director had said. So ASIO head Mike Burgess said he may soon use powers to compel tech companies to cooperate with warrants and unlock encrypted chats to aid in national security investigations. Have to do it for national security. You have to. Everyone has to agree with national security. If you actually break the law or you're a threat to security, you lose your right to privacy. Okay, you have to agree with that, I suppose. And what I've been asking for those companies that build messaging apps is to respond to the lawful requests so that when I have a warrant and you give me access to that communication, Burgess told 730. Burgess said ASIO is seeking targeted access to chat rooms hosted on encrypted platforms, which are increasingly used by bad actors to hide their communications. We're not asking for mass surveillance. He says we're not asking, but they actually are. Okay. So we're not asking for mass surveillance. We need their cooperation, he said. If they don't cooperate, then there's a private conversation I need to have with government about what we accept or what I need to do my job more effectively. In other words, easily, because I don't want to do good. I don't want to do hard working police work, investigative work. I want to do things easily. He says more effectively. In 2018, Australia passed legislation that was considered groundbreaking at the time, requiring tech companies to cooperate with law enforcement agencies' requests to access messages exchanged on encrypted platforms. Under the new laws, when voluntary cooperation fails, tech companies can be compelled to provide access. Burgess wouldn't comment on whether he had exercised that power in the past 12 months, but told 7:30 is something I'm considering doing. The ASIO bosses said he has been meeting with tech companies. Now, this is the really concerning part, and I think this is what his real intent is, comes further down. I understand. This is Burgess saying. Burgess says lawful access is all about targeted action against individuals under investigation. I understand there are people who really need it in some countries. But in this country, so apparently Australia, you don't need it. But in this country, Australia, you're all good. I understand there are people who really need it in some countries, but in this country, in Australia, we're subject to the rule of law. Is everyone subject to the rule of law? Because I seem to recall there's a lot of politicians around that don't feel that they're subject to the rule of law. And if you're doing nothing wrong, before I move on to this, what he's about to say, this really irked me when I would hear police use this line. There were police that would use this line when I was policing, especially when I was in general duties. Police would use this line against people. They'd pull someone up, and they would say, "Okay, so do you mind if I have a look in your car?" Pull someone up roadside. Do you mind if I have a look in your car? And the person say, well, what right? You need a warrant, don't you? Need a warrant to check my car, to search my car? And you'd hear this line, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you wouldn't mind if I search your car. And the same thing would happen if they've talked to someone on the street, especially someone younger who really didn't know their rights, and they'd talk to them and ask them for their name and details. And, it's commonly called a street check. And there's no real lawful right they have to do it. They're just acting out of the goodness of the person they're talking to, or the lack of knowledge that the person that they're talking to doesn't understand that they don't really have to give all this information in all circumstances. Okay. So, but what I would often hear officers say is, well, can I search your pockets? Can I give you a quick search? And they say, well, can you really do that? And well, if you don't, if you've got nothing to hide, you're not going to worry about giving a quick search, emptying out your pockets. The person feels obligated. The problem is, just because you don't have anything to hide doesn't mean that you don't want or you don't deserve privacy. You still deserve privacy. Just because the police officer is trying to skirt around their obligations, their legal obligations, and the regulations, doesn't mean that you don't deserve the right to privacy. And these are the kind of tactics that lazy police use. And unfortunately, too many people just turn around and say, oh, they feel kind of guilty. Oh, yeah, okay, I've got nothing to hide, or, whatever, I'll do that. Anyway, so this is what Burgess is about to say. He's giving this basically the same argument. He says, I understand there are people who really need it in some countries, but in this country, in Australia, we're subject to the rule of law. But if you're doing nothing wrong, you've got privacy because no one is looking at it. What kind of gibberish is that? Well, tell me, what kind of gibberish is that? If you're doing nothing wrong, that's the same as the officers who pull up someone and say, hey, can I search your car? Well, if you haven't got anything to hide, you don't mind if I look at you in your car. If you've got nothing to hide, you don't mind if I search your pockets at the moment. If you've got nothing to hide, you don't deserve privacy. You're guilty until I prove you innocent. You're guilty until you prove that you are innocent. That's what they're saying. And this is really what he's saying. He's just making everyone feel guilty. Hey, you've got privacy because we've got the ability to look at you. You can't whinge about privacy because we're not looking at you. Burgess goes on to say, if there are suspicions or we've got proof that we can justify you're doing something wrong and you must be investigated, then actually we want lawful access to that data. Just saying, well, if you've got nothing to hide, empty out your pockets. What do you have to hide? This is the kind of speech, this is the kind of rhetoric that comes from fascists. This is the kind of rhetoric, the kind of excuses that comes from dictatorships, despots. If you've got nothing to hide, you'll just go along with it. They are about to completely take away our ability to speak freely. Any ability for freedom of speech, they're about to take that away. That's what I believe. And they are about to, regardless of what we want, they will continue to use this excuse that they're attacking pedophiles or attacking drug users, blah, 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 to no, let's just make things really easy for us and take away the privacy, take away the ability to use encrypted platforms. No one needs privacy. If you've got nothing to hide, what are you worried about? We can be trusted. We're the Australian government. You saw it there. He said it. He said it just before. Hey, in other countries, but not in Australia, you don't need that kind of privacy. You don't need that kind of protection in Australia. The Australian government can be protected. They can be trusted. The Australian government can be trusted. You don't need that protection in Australia because we can be trusted. That's what he's saying. They're about to take away your privacy, and we're just allowing it to happen. You cannot trust this man, Mike Burgess. You can't, sure as heck, cannot trust Julian Martin Grant. You can't trust the Australian government. You sure as heck can't trust Queensland government. We're being attacked on all sides. And I don't think anyone is talking enough about it. No one is shining enough of a light. They are about to take everything, all of our privacy away from us and tell us, well, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, what are you worried about? That's my opinion. This is where I think we're going. The reason why I think I'll finish off on this from a biblical perspective, and I know there's people out there that think, Jay, stop talking about the Bible. But it's my podcast, so I'll talk about what I want. The Bible says in Revelation chapter 13 that there's going to become a one world government, and that this one world government is basically going to be ruled by one person. This person, it seems, is going to have the technology and the ability to compel people to get a mark, to dictate that you cannot buy or sell unless you have that mark. Okay, some kind of mark on there, something that you would scan, and you cannot buy something unless you have something on your hand or your forehead. That's what the Bible says. This thing was predicted thousands of years ago. I believe what is happening right now with this attack on our ability to speak freely, on an attack on privacy, is all leading up to this. They want to be able to dictate and control every aspect of our life. And the only way for what's going to happen in Revelation 13 to come about is if all this technology is already in place, and they're putting it in place here. They want to be able to control every aspect, and soon it'll be, hey, and by the way, because we're going to get rid of cash, you won't be able to buy or sell, and we're going to keep track of everything that you do. But hey, as long as you have this mark or whatever on your right hand, on your forehead, then you'll be okay. This is all leading up to that area. You mightn't agree. A lot of people on here don't agree with me. That's fine. We can all agree to disagree. That's what I think. That's where I think it's going. Read the Bible for yourself. Either way, they're compelling us, taking it away from us. That's my opinion. I'm Jay Fallon. Thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope.
And say it isn't real. And please don't go away. Just give me one more day. What if I could? What if I could turn back time? I'd make you smile again. And if I could unbreak your heart, and we could start again. What if I could? What if I could turn back time? I'd make you smile again. And if I could unbreak your heart, and we could start again. We could start again. We could start again. We could start again.